If you make good money but still feel like you're not getting ahead, this is probably why. Most financial advice about what you should do assumes one thing, that your situation looks like everyone else's. And using the wrong account at the wrong time can set you back months and even years financially, tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars if you make the wrong mistake. My name's Chris, and I paid off $43,000 of debt and turned that into a net worth of multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in this video, I'm going to show you the 4 quadrants of financial accounts so you can figure out where you are, what problem you're actually trying to solve, and which accounts make sense for you today, right now. And in order to do that, I need my handy dandy notebook. Who knows the reference? All right, so what account to use when? This is one of my resources that I have in my personal finance community, Dollar Discipline University. The link is somewhere underneath this video or on my channel page, whatever, but this is one of the most important aspects of what I share in my community because, like I said in the beginning, having the wrong account can literally cripple your finances. Trying to jump ahead to an account that you're not ready for based on the quadrants also can cripple your finances. So let's go through it here. So we're going to draw 4 quadrants. Let's see how this goes here. Oh, that was terrible. This is like okay, here we go. All right, we have our 4 quadrants, okay? So how this is set up is there's going to be time frames up here and then sort of the strategies over here. So for time frames, we have short term, long term, stability, and growth. Okay? So if you think about it, we'll have 4 quadrants. We'll have a short-term stability, long-term stability, short-term growth, long-term growth. Okay? That makes sense, right? And every account that exists in the entire world exists into one of these quadrants. We're going to be just talking about like a dozen different accounts, some of the most popular ones that people use, especially in the United States. But again, the mistake is using an account from the wrong quadrant. So first we have to understand where we stand and then what accounts are in there of the problems that we're trying to solve. So for example, and this happens a lot, so raise your hand if you're watching this live or later on in the YouTube video. Let me know down in the comments if this is you and you have all the best intentions in the world. And I've seen this too often, so I know this is very common. We set up some sort of auto investing or saving thing and all the intentions are awesome, right? We do that at the beginning of the month. It's like, okay, we just got paid, so we're going to move 200, 500, however much into this thing to, for our future. It's going to be great. And then the 27th of the month rolls around and you realize that you don't have enough either money to get through until the next paycheck, or an emergency pops up and you don't have any money. So you end up pulling the money out of the long-term thing for a short-term problem. And that's what I'm trying to talk through in this video. Knowing what quadrant you're currently in is going to help you out significantly. So as I go through these, I just want to be very clear that not one of these quadrants is better than another one. It doesn't, I don't want people to think if they're in short-term stability, which seems like the worst one, that doesn't matter. Everyone wants to go to long-term growth. I get that. So let's create the path to get there. But if you're here after I explain kind of the emotions around each of the quadrants, I want you guys to tell me which one you think you're in, but don't feel like it doesn't matter. You just have to be self-aware about which one it is. So the first quadrant here, the short-term stability here, and this is kind of just we're gonna say survival. This is kind of like survival mode. And again, this isn't a negative thing, but it's just you're in this quadrant if you're living paycheck to paycheck. If you check your bank account all the time because you're not sure, like if you're at the grocery store, you're like, oh, do I have enough money here, right? You don't have an emergency fund or it's pretty small, so you're just kind of maybe getting that going, but not enough if a big emergency came up. You're using credit cards for, I'll say normal expenses, but without knowing, like without being able to pay for them. Like I use a credit card for stuff like groceries and stuff, but we pay it, whatever. Yeah. But if you're using a credit card because you don't have funds in the account or something like that, and then if you always just feel kind of behind, you're constantly catching up, you're just like waiting patiently for that next paycheck to come through. Okay, so that means you're in this quadrant. So I would say in this quadrant here, survival mode does not mean investing. So if you are in this quadrant after what I just shared, like I wouldn't be worried about anything with a long-term, money solution, right? We have to be thinking about the short term. So some accounts that we should consider here are, we have like checking, we have saving, we have high yield savings account, and we have, I put debt on the list. It's not really an account, so I'm going to put it in brackets here. But it's like if we have a ton of debt or something, I would think of that as like kind of survival mode, because remember, debt is the biggest kind of wealth generator killer, right? It's a very negative thing towards our wealth building. And if you're clicking this video, it's because maybe you are a higher earner and you want to start growing your wealth, but you want to figure out where you currently stand and what accounts to currently use. So any questions so far with this? I feel like survival is pretty straightforward. Do any of you feel like you're in survival mode? Let me know either live or down below this video. So if you just joined us, we're breaking down the 4 types of financial accounts and how each one, which one you should be using based on your own situation. So that was quadrant 1. The next quadrant is long-term stability. So now we're over here. So really the path of this is like this. We're going to go over here, down, and then like that. That's the path that we probably want to take here, right? And again, if you're in quadrant 1, don't worry about it. Just let's try to get out of it. That's all. But don't think of yourself. Doesn't mean you're worse of a person or something. You're all great. I love you all. So in this long-term stability, I like to say that this is kind of protection mode. Okay, protection mode. So how do you know if you're in this one? Well, maybe you do have, some sort of nice large buffer emergency fund. You're not stressed about short-term expenses. Like you can just kind of live the day-to-day life without really having to worry about it that much. You're thinking about retirement in the background. You're like, oh, am I behind? Am I doing enough? You're doing a little bit. You're contributing something, maybe not consistently. Maybe you don't have something on auto payment because you're like, oh, I don't know how much I'll have at the end of the month. Like, do I put 200 or 1,000 or 500 or whatever? And it's kind of wishy-washy. That's how you know if you're in this type of account. So the type of accounts here, we have things like the traditional like 401k, IRA, like a Roth IRA, traditional IRA, and then maybe like a health savings account, okay? And now this video isn't really meant to go deep into what all of these accounts are, because again, if I came into this video and said, do this account, do that account, that kind of defeats the purpose of what I was trying to do in this video in the first place. So what I'm doing here is just trying to share generalized accounts that people know and have heard of, and kind of just so you can conceptually gain the idea of what we're trying to talk to. So in this account here, protection, again, we're sort of like trying to take the next step with our finances. So we've passed the survival mode test. We're feeling stable with the short term, and we're ready to just kind of start like dipping our toe into the next step of like, okay, what's the next goal for me? And if you're not sure how to set financial goals, I've made a video a couple days ago on my channel talking about that. So make sure to go seek that out, because I think that's really helpful to give you a nice framework of what you should be looking for. And if you're in either of these 2 quadrants here, I'm actually running a 6-week challenge to help you find your next $1,000 hidden in your finances. We all know it's in there. It's in there, and I'm helping people find it inside of my personal finance community. So that's where I'm running this challenge. So make sure to check out the link again, either below the video or on my YouTube channel page. And let me know that you came from this video, and I'll see you inside there. So let's go to the 3rd quadrant here. So we have our short-term growth, and this account here, this type of account I call planning. Okay? So now here we're sort of building toward specific goals, right? So if you remember in the second quadrant, we were dipping our toe in, we were trying to figure stuff out, but now in here, we're thinking about stuff. And how you know you're here is if you're saving for something specific, like a smaller term but large thing, like maybe a house, or you're getting married. So you have clarity on some 1 to 5 year goal, and I classify that as a medium term goal. So anything under a year is short term goal. 1 to 5 is like a medium term goal, and then anything over 5 I would consider a longer term goal. You're starting to think about things more strategically, right? So maybe you're pulling up a compounding interest calculator to look at how much you're putting towards the goal, to look at the thing, and maybe you're doing some math, you're crunching numbers, you're trying to really think, you're trying to reverse engineer, okay, if I need to get to this dollar amount by this time frame, what do I have to do each year, each month, okay? And you're really starting to think about it, and kudos for you if that's something that you do. That's amazing. You feel uncomfortable when your money is just sitting idle, so like having just like a ton of money in your checking account, as what if you already have like other buffer situations and you're just not optimizing your money. So maybe that's something that you would feel in the planning stage. And you're okay to take some risk for growth. Obviously, any sort of investment is just like there's levels of risk to it, right? There's no guarantee that there's going to be any returns. So that's the kind of feelings you would have if you're in the planning stage. Okay. And some accounts that we would have in here. So if you have kids, for example, like I do, I've got 2 little kids. Maybe you have or have thought about a 529 education savings plan, okay? And also in this account, brokerage account, but just for like a goal-based brokerage account. And what I mean by brokerage account is an account that you have for like stocks, or you have index funds or bonds, or something where you're like putting money to invest towards, say, one of those goals. Like I know a lot of people that put money into a brokerage account when they're saving for a house because they are hoping and trusting that in 5 years that money will expand and compound into a greater amount than the amount that they contributed, right? So they have a very specific goal in mind. And some people would probably argue about, some of these, like the 529 education savings plan and a brokerage account being in a short-term label, because a lot of people think, a brokerage account's for a long term. But if it's for a goal that we discussed, or even like college, people are like, hey, people don't go to college until they're, say, 18. So this account could be available for 18. So there's some nuances here, right? But I just wanted to clear that's where I have this. I'd love to hear your feedback on what you think, where it should go. So that was quadrant 3. And now quadrant 4. Here we're going to be looking at our long-term growth account. So this is the last and final boss here of the what account to use when quadrants, right? So this one here is wealth mode, kind of like stealth mode, but wealth mode, right? This is where we just start putting money to truly build wealth, and that's its only function. So you're here if you've handled, we'll call it the basics, the sort of the foundation. And think of this also, like we could restack these as like this is the first piece of the foundation, number 2, number 3, number 4, and think of it maybe like as a vertical building or something like that. So that's another way to do it. So you're also probably in the wealth mode quadrant if you are thinking in decades and not in months. So I remember when I first started my personal finance journey, I wasn't thinking past I'm recording this in March right now. I wouldn't be thinking past the summer. It's like, oh, I have that like vacation in the summer. Maybe I should like save up for that. And that's like as far as I thought. But now I'm thinking definitely in decades. I mean, especially with 2 kids, we're just trying to think through like, where do we want to go? Okay. How do you think we could reverse engineer it? And of course, it's not going to be perfect, but at least we're trying to just start and do something. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have heard this analogy, but and I'm not a spacecraft engineer or anything like that, but when rocket ships blast off, like all the energy occurs in the beginning blast off, lift off, right? And then once they're in space, like they don't they don't keep blasting. Like they're just doing little like they coast a bunch and then they nudge occasionally to get to kind of where they want to go. And that's what I want you to think about in wealth mode. So you don't have to be like perfect. It doesn't have to be a perfect road. You just have to like start and go on you just have to be directionally correct, I think is the way to put it. Okay. So you also know that you're in here is if you're investing consistently. So probably a good amount of money every single month. You're less emotional about market swings. So if you're in it for the long haul, you're definitely not looking at what your markets are doing or anything like that. And you're focused on net worth growth, not to brag to your friends or to post it on Instagram next to your Lamborghini and all your bling that you got. But really just more for progress, to see the kind of progress that you're making. And it's a great tool just to track, like month over month, you can literally see how your money is doing, how your plan is doing, right? And if we go back to the market swings, an interesting story. So I have a 9-to-5 job still, and last year, I think about a year ago, the stock market went down like a lot in like a week or two. And there's two coworkers that came into work with their hair on fire essentially, and they were very stressed about their 401k. One of them reduced their contribution instantly, and one of them just stopped contributing altogether. Can you believe that? Just stopped contributing because they were so nervous that the market went down. Meanwhile, I didn't change anything, and then in like 2 months, it had passed the point of the highest peak in that last couple months. So it was just like it was gone. It was gone in a couple months, and it was actually one of the best return years that I've had in the 401k account. So like it just shows like if you're in it for the long haul, you actually have to be in it for the long haul. You have to have some sort of trust that, you know, the system is going to work. And of course, that's a whole nother conversation about how you think about the American economy or maybe even the US dollar, but we're not touching that subject. We're not touching that here. So basically there's more, but in my opinion, there's just like one type of account, and it's brokerage again, but this for long term, right? For wealth, long-term wealth. So the difference between brokerage goal and brokerage long-term, brokerage goal is, okay, I want to buy a house in 5 years, so I'm going to just put it towards this. And then when it's time to buy a house, we're going to take it out. We're going to eat the tax hit, the capital gains hit, whatever, right? But when you're doing it for this, like you're just putting it in so that you can use it in literally decades or however long you want to use it for, right? But it's for a much longer term goal. So the biggest mistake that people make isn't maybe what they invest in or how they invest or how they save or whatever. It's when they use certain accounts. Now, I hope that this little quadrant is very clear. Maybe it's a little messy at this point, but hopefully it's very clear in terms of knowing where you're at on your personal finance journey. So, for example, let's just go through a couple of these because I know that these are pretty common. So I talked about it in the beginning, but trying to be in wealth mode when you're in survival mode, it's not going to work. As frustrating as that is, because this is the really fun, sexy thing that we want to all do, right? We want to be in wealth mode. We want to be having our money make us money. We want to be, I don't know, making that passive income while we're sleeping. Oh, it's 2 a.m., but our money's working, right? We want to be doing all that, but this trying to be here when you're here can be damaging, like crippling, damaging. Because think about it. If you go back to the example, okay, so the first of the month, you're in survival mode, you invest, and you're like, yeah, I'm in it for the long haul, I want to retire, this is great. You put in, I don't know, $200, $500. The 27th comes around, you have all four of your tires go out. There was some crazy nail truck spillage on the highway, and they all got flats. And you had to replace all four tires, but you didn't have anything in any of these short-term accounts, so you had to pull the money back out or go into debt for it. So either you made your situation worse by trying to be in wealth mode, or you went further into survival mode by going into debt. Okay. So, another thing that really kind of could be problematic here is, let's say you've been very, I don't know, disciplined, we'll call it, with your money, and very careful with your money, but you have all of your money in like a checking account, right? Like you've built up the buffer and then you just like kept building it and you never put it anywhere else. Like imagine having like, I don't know, if you have like $200,000 of assets to your name and 100,000 of them are in your checking account, right? Like that's probably not ideal. That would make me kind of uncomfortable. So that's something else that could be crippling, because you could have, had a better opportunity to be gaining interest on that money, at least in like a high yield savings account, right? But ideally in some sort of like brokerage or higher investing account, higher risk, of course, that's what that means, but a higher interest rate. And then, yeah, I guess really, I double dipped on my notes there, but trying to build wealth without stability. That's kind of the main thing. So we don't want our building to be wobbly. If we're on the wealth mode wobbling because there's no survival mode, right? That's the problem. And before we choose an account, I think it's really helpful to ask ourselves, is this short-term money or long-term money, right? Like, am I trying to protect it or am I trying to grow it? Is really kind of the thought process here. So I think I made that pretty clear. And is that possible to do both at the same time, I guess? Is it possible to try and protect your money and grow your money? For sure, definitely. And I think a lot of people do this, because I think a lot of people, and you guys let me know, but a lot of people get frustrated in the short-term stage, and they feel like they're like casting their line out to go to these these growth quadrants here, because they're just getting frustrated that they're always in survival mode. So they try to do both. And in my opinion, and maybe I should draw something else here. Hold on, I got my kid's clipboard here. This is very high tech. So I don't have my black one, so that's okay. So this is your wallet. Okay. We draw a nice circle around that. Now, I'm going to do another example down here. Your wallet. It's kind of hard to see the vein from the other side's going through. In this example, when you try to do too many things, let's say you have let's call it $800 going to different things. So you have all these dollar signs, right? And you just try to cast your net out. It's kind of tough to see, but you cast your net out to all these different opportunities, thinking and hoping one of them will work. Now imagine if you took all of those resources and you just put it all towards one thing at a time, right? That would probably be more ideal, because if you're in survival mode, like, you got to go hard to get out of it. If you're building wealth, you got to go hard to keep going with it, right? So I think less distractions is probably better when you're talking about the quadrants here, just focusing on one of them. Now, of course, do whatever you want with your money. This is just my recommendation. So I think that's going to be the end of the video, guys. And again, if you're interested, come join the personal finance community. I'm doing that 6-week challenge soon. I'm starting it in April. So depending on when you're watching this, if you're watching this live, come check that out. That's in a couple weeks. And if you're watching this after the fact, 6-week challenge to help you find $1,000 in your finances that I know already exists. It's definitely hiding in there, and we're gonna find it. I have a completely free DIY course in there, if you want to call it that, but it's called the Personal Finance Operating System. So if you liked this piece, I mean, this is just one piece of the course that I have in there for free. It's completely free. And I make these videos and like all this information and stuff, and I put it together for you guys so that you can win with your money, whatever that means for you.